Hello, this is Heidi Richards Mooney with Redhead Marketing, and today I'm going to talk to you about who really owns your website. When it comes to hiring people to create a website, the customer often assumes that when they hire someone to do the work for them, the customer owns the website. That is simply not the case. Why? Because websites generally consist of creative material and software, among other things. According to the U.S. copyright law, the creator of a work automatically holds the exclusive copyright to it. Therefore, the only way that copyright may be transferred to a customer is with a signed contract. In fact, not having a contract specifically stating the customer owns the creative work can and has been the cause of many challenges for people who think they own the website, not only to find out that they do not own it, nor do they have any way of recovering any losses that may incur if the developer goes out of business, quits, meaning they stop doing your work, or the job is not done to the client's satisfaction. In fact, as a customer, you may not have any legal rights to even finish, modify, or delete the site without the web developer's permission. So in this session, we're going to talk about the things that you need to know about who owns your website, as well as some things that you can do to protect yourself. So, for instance, if a developer has created a unique element, say an application or software platform they created that is proprietary to them, they're not going to give you ownership of that software. It is more likely they will grant you permission to use the software for the life of the website through a licensing agreement or developer's licensed agreement. To get exclusive rights to such software is possible, and it's probably very expensive, so it depends on how much you want it. So then, who owns the web design? Well, that depends. The web developer should provide a written agreement giving you design ownership once the site has been completed and paid for. Otherwise, it is owned by the creator and licensed to you. If you program the site yourself, you own it. Otherwise, get it in writing. So then, what about the text content? Well, the intellectual property, the things that you give to your web designer to put on your website. You own all content you provide to the web developer to use on your site, provided you're the author of such content. That means any formatted, readable, search engine indexable text that shows up on your website is owned by the creator or the legal author of the site text content. A written agreement giving you content ownership should be included in any terms or legal documents prior to hiring a web developer. So then, let's talk about the domain name. Who owns the domain name? Again, another area that can cause a challenge if you do not know how to protect yourself. The best thing to do is always register the domain name yourself using a domain registrar you're comfortable with. We recommend Weak Eye Domains as they've been in business more than 7 years and offer good pricing and service. You can, of course, register your domain name with any registrar that you either are currently using, have heard of, or know about. We just happen to like Weak Eye Domains, and we happen to be a representative to them. Once you register your domain name and provide the pertinent information to your web developer, when the time comes, they will need to add the IP address or domain name server, as I said, to your registrar database. That is how the site will show up on the web servers hosting your website. It's kind of like the post office. They need your address in order to know where to deliver the mail. The same is true of a website. They need to know where it's being housed in order to know where it is geographically. So I recommend to my clients do not divulge their passwords or login information if they have several domains with the same registrar account. It is pretty simple to add the info you need by calling the registrar and having them help you add the necessary information. With Weak Eye Domains, you just pick up the phone, you give them your information on your account. They'll ask you maybe for your PIN number and your account number, and they'll walk you through the whole process. It takes less than 5 minutes. So a good web developer will give you the information you need in order to do that. They won't insist that they have access to that. And if you're comfortable with them, of course, if the person you are working with you trust implicitly, or you've known for a long time, or you know they've done other people's websites, etc., it's probably okay. It's just, try to remember to use due diligence and common sense when it comes to the information that you share with anybody who's doing work for you, especially when it comes to important passwords and login information. The main point here is to make sure the domain is registered to you or your company, or the person who assumes that they own the site. This will avoid costly delays, legal fees, and the possible loss of the brand you worked so hard to build. When hiring a web developer, make sure the person puts the domain in your name with your contact information, and that you have access to that information via the registrar used. I had a client who was held hostage by a web developer who told her that he would let her have use of her domain name for 5 years at a cost of $50 a year. That was ridiculous. She had hired me because she wanted me to redo her website. She had found a less expensive hosting package and wanted to just change. Basically, he was charging her an exorbitant amount for hosting each month, not giving her any service, and he just wanted basically to pretty much own the website. Well, they didn't have a contract or anything, so the bottom line is she lost the domain name. She gave up the site, said, it's fine, I'm just going to start from scratch, and she found another domain name that was almost as good. But think about the time that she'd invested in building that brand that she now had to start all over again. So registering a domain name these days is generally easy, and it's only under $10 in most cases. There are some sites that charge more. There's no really any reason to pay more than that. Some places even charge $1 or $2, but they have caveats to that. They want you to host it with them. So maybe they'll charge you $1 or $2 for the site, the domain name, but there is a catch. You have to host with them for a certain length of time in order to get the domain name for free. One of the things you can do is you can check who owns your domain name by visiting www.wecaidomains.com or any domain name registrar. You can also check, you can just Google who is for domain names and come up with a list of registrars. So any domain registrar will be able to give you that information unless they have protected it. And basically you go in, you type in the URL you think you own, or even if you're looking for someone who owns another domain name, maybe you want to purchase it. And then you do a search, it'll say it's already taken, and basically it'll just tell you who owns the site. And then you can see if it's you, and if it's not, then you have to figure out what you're going to do next. And if you find the domain you thought you own is not in your name, then you will need to take steps to get it in your name. To rectify that, you must be able to contact the person or company who the domain has been registered with and get them to make the necessary corrections to the registration. And that's provided you have a good relationship with them. So for instance, if you had a web developer who created a website and they put the domain in their name, or if you had an employee who put it in their name, you want to make sure that you own the legal rights to it. So let's talk now about photos. Photos are another challenge because they are often acquired from third parties such as stock photo sites. It's always best, if you can, to use photos you have taken and own. But if you must use third-party photos, make sure you have the necessary rights to them on your website. Stock photo sites have a lot of different licensing agreements, from just basically using it on a website on the internet, or as far as even using it as a logo and graphics for print material. And most of the time when you're going to use a stock photo from any of the stock photo websites they're called royalty free, you'll still have to pay more money if you're going to use the photo that you purchase from them in anything other than the website. And then, of course, there's the issue of third-party software. In most cases, the developer passes along the license it obtains from a vendor. That license must cover your proposed use and allow for changes in your business. If the developer owns the software, a license agreement can be simple and practical and an easy solution. The issue of customized software is another area to be concerned with. So third-party software could be something like a program you added to your website that helps create forms. It could be a free software that the developer used, but it could be something they paid for, in which case they don't own it and you don't own it. You just have you're just allowed to use it. So you have to understand that there are even certain components on a website that you don't own. If you pay for custom development and the contract expressly states that, then you likely have the option to own the software. However, it may not be worth it. In that case, as in many of the situations stated here, an attorney or legal counsel is necessary. One issue you should consider is whether or not you want or can afford to allow your competitors to also have access to that same software. It is important to ask the developer what they will use to create your website. If they're programming a site from scratch, it is likely they will be the only ones who can update the site because they have their own language. Every developer uses their own language. They may have a basic language that they share, but oftentimes they'll use their own little codes and things so that other people would have more trouble infiltrating that code and making corrections to a site. And that's simply to protect themselves so that they have long-term clients. Right or wrong, that's usually the way it is. So coding is very complex and developers often use it in place of open source software simply because they have a better chance of retaining the client long-term, as I mentioned before. It's okay if you have deep pockets, not so much if you're a small startup company that wants a web presence inexpensively and expeditiously. So let's talk about a little bit about the open source software before hiring your next web designer. My company uses WordPress almost exclusively. It's open source, free to the public software that is a framework for many websites these days. We also purchased the rights to WordPress compatible web templates that we use to make the site functional with specific amenities and tools to manage the site that provide a look and feel the customer desires. WordPress is extremely easy to maintain. It's free, open source software, meaning that anybody can use it. You don't have to pay for it. It's SEO friendly and adaptable to a variety of template changes, plugins, and other functionality. So again, before you hire your next web designer or outsource your web design project, consider the following. Have a written agreement. Make sure it's signed by the developer or the person you contract to do the work for. Be sure the following is spelled out. Who owns the finished assembled work, meaning the entire site once it's done, and that the job contracted is work for hire or work made for hire also should probably be included in the contract that you create with the developer. I'm not saying it's always necessary, especially if you're working with somebody you've worked with before, but if you protect yourself at the beginning, there's never any questions about any of the legalities, or at least it makes it a little clearer, and you will feel more secure knowing that the work you've paid a lot of money to have done will be yours when it is complete. So let me tell you a little bit about my company. If you need a simple website solution, Redhead Marketing offers web development starting at just $295. And the best part is we create it and you own it. So you can call us at 954-625-6606 or email Heidi, Heidi, at redheadmarketinginc.com for more information. And just a final word. This is kind of the legal disclaimer that this video is provided for informational purposes only. The content covers the basics of who owns what when it comes to a website, but it may not cover all scenarios or scenarios that you would be involved in. All information shared here is in this video should not be considered legal advice, nor